Welcome to The Moms I Know with Sheila Walsh-Denson and Maria Anderson-Farnan. Two moms on a mission to reclaim childhood and take you from surviving to thriving on your parenting journey.
Hi, this is Sheila.
And this is Maria.
And we want to welcome you to
The Moms I Know. Today we're going to be talking about the idea of our self-worth as mothers and as women who work. And we're going to be talking about this whole concept of whether we are at home with our children or whether we are working out in the workplace, how we ourselves feel, how does society look at this, and all of the ramifications that go along with this. And it's been front and center for both Sheila and I in our lives, and things have been coming up right now. And so we just want to preface this with this concept that this is a choice. Well, it's not a choice for every woman, but it is a choice that women make when we decide, if we decide to have children, and we choose to stay home with them, or we choose to stay in our professions or our careers or in our employment. So we wanted to be able to take some time to look at this and look at the feelings that come up, as well as the economic and social repercussions of all of this.
Yes, it's a hot topic. And I know that what we say is, well, I am talking from my own experience, and I think you will be too, talking from your experience, as well as Maria, as what you have seen in the classroom. Because as a homeschool teacher, you are working with working moms and working moms working at home moms, and so that is definitely, it has definitely brought up a lot for me. And so I think I'm going to talk a little bit, start with my experience, where when I got pregnant, I was a high school teacher, full-time high school teacher, and I never planned to be a stay-at-home parent. I thought I had gone to school, I'm going to keep teaching. And when I had my son, I had him in May, so I had the summer off, and I went back to school part-time. I went back to teaching part-time. It didn't feel right for me. It didn't feel right because I was still breastfeeding. I remember having to actually be under the desk with my breast pump, because in the classroom, it is not really conducive for moms to be working moms. Well, what happened was, by April of that following year, I was pregnant again. My first two children were 18 months apart. And so I was given a choice of putting my two babies into daycare to continue my career, or to choose to be a stay-at-home mom. I chose to be a stay-at-home mom, and I feel like that was the best decision for our family. But in the long run, I feel like what a gift I was given to be home with the children. And I remember specifically a time when they were both babies, and I was at the market, and a grandmother looked at me and she said, "You will never get those years back." And she said, "You are doing," like, she kind of gave me that pat on the back that was like, "You will never regret this decision." And I still think about that grandmotherly woman, because even though I'm not a grandmother, I feel that when I see these young moms with the two babies during the middle of the day making that choice. Because if I would have stayed in teaching, I would have been teaching about 21 years. And so I took 16 years off to raise my children. And I say, took 16 years off is that I just accepted a job to be a homeschool teacher. So I have, my youngest is 9 years old. So here I am, I'm able to get back into the workforce while still maintain the integrity of being a stay-at-home parent.
Oh, I'm really glad that you shared your story. And this reminds me that and I'll share mine briefly too. So I was working in Santa Barbara. I was an administrator of a preschool at a YMCA. And when I got pregnant, I worked through my pregnancy, and I just assumed I'd take that 6 weeks leave of absence and go back to work. And then my son was born. And the minute I saw my son, there was this immediate realization that no way am I going to go back to work. Of course I'm going to be with him. And that instantaneous moment of motherhood, when I knew that was what I was going to be doing. And for me, I always wanted to have a family. And as a teacher, I know, both of us have been in the teaching profession. And so there is that sort of ability to look at it a little bit differently, instead of like the career woman who's corporate America. But I also chose to stay home. And when our second child arrived a couple of years later, I was at home with them. And at that point, we were trying to decide how to make this all work financially and what were we going to do. And it would have cost as much as what I would make to have them both in daycare. And so the trade-offs, it didn't make sense at all. I'd miss out on all of that time with them, and I would not be bringing in a significant amount of money anyhow. But what was interesting was I started watching other people's children. Other moms went back to work, and I was home with our children and other mothers' children. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. And you talked about that as a gift. And I'm so grateful for that my husband was able to carry the load economically. I was able to watch some other people's children. So I was a working mom, but I was a mom at home. And also there were times when I wasn't watching other people's children. I was just watching my own. And yet there is this whole dialogue about when we're just a mom. I hear people say that all the time. Oh, you're just a mom. Or I hear women say that. And being a mother is the most important, amazing, valuable job in the world. And yet our society doesn't value this in the same way. You look at some other cultures where they really value that. And I think at this point, I want to make sure we're talking about the fact that many women choose to stay in their careers and also become parents, and they find, childcare for their children. And I believe that every woman has the right to choose what path works for her. I also see people making choices that I don't always think are in the best interest of the children. And so we have to look, you actually said that, Sheila, you talked about it was the best choice for my family. You didn't say it was the best choice for me. You said it was the best choice for my family, but you also called it a gift. And so I think that we do have this feeling that those years are so precious and that we really want to treasure that. I also see a lot of families nowadays where one parent, and mother, father, two moms, two dads, however the family, grandparents, the family is changing. It's interesting. Right now, I just grabbed this magazine. It's a Time magazine. It talks about the science of family, and it talks about how the family dynamic is changing so much now. And they're actually looking at sort of the history of families throughout centuries. But however we look at that family unit, if an adult can stay home with the children, I truly believe that is in the best interest of the children. And I also know that there's quality childcare out there. And I also know that there are a lot of people that don't have the luxury of making that choice. And we have both been able to make those choices. And there's also the trade-offs. I've seen single moms homeschool their kids and also work. I've seen parents make all kinds of arrangements work with extended family or grandparents, or trade-offs, or mom goes to work at this time and dad goes to work at this time so that they can stay home with the children. Whatever choice is there, we're talking also about this kind of, how does society value the work that we do? And I think in general, what we're seeing is that we have a long way to go in terms of, in America, really valuing the choice to stay home with children, especially when they're young.
Yeah, I think that it's how we value children as a society. And I believe we do not put enough value on that in our country. And, for Brent and I, it was not easy. We are still in our little house that we bought almost 20 years ago, right? If I would have been bringing in a salary for the past 16, 17 years, we would definitely be in a bigger house. But it was a choice for us to stay in this house of what we, on our list of values. What did we value? And we valued the home education, which was a big piece of it, as well as being present, being able to participate, being able to be part of parent education, nursery school, being able to fully be there for when our children needed us, through the field trips, through the classroom support, through, so these quote unquote stay-at-home moms are working moms. However, without a salary. I believe at one point someone said, if you put down all the tasks of a stay-at-home mom, the laundry, the cooking, the shopping, the even, you can put in the home education, but you put in all of those things that people usually pay for, services, I think a stay-at-home mom would be making six figures.
Yeah, I think it was over $200,000 was one that I saw.
Right. And so but yet it's not counted. And I relayed to you a story earlier that I would like to share about something that is being, perceived by children where there was a competition at my daughter's school, and the winner had won first place, and it wasn't her first time winning first place. And this child said, "Oh, it's because her mom doesn't work is the reason why she won." And I said, "Oh, well, I don't work," and just trying to kind of feed that line. And she said, "No, she really doesn't work." And I kind of left it there because I didn't want to, of course, take on this child, but yet it really got me thinking of that. This is what she is thinking, is that a stay-at-home parent is not working, yet she just fundraised the most for her school. This mom is constantly present at the school. The mom is supporting the classroom, supporting the school, but yet that's not recognized. And so she's getting this information from her two working parents that's the reason why she won. And so I just feel that, and that's like that working mom, stay-at-home mom, that there's a kind of silent,
Struggle.
struggle, just the edge there, of just like, well, the stay-at-home mom saying, well, I do all the work in the classroom, why aren't you doing anything? And the working mom saying, well, I'm making the money, you don't have anything to do, so you work in the classroom. When in actuality, it's like we all want the same thing. We all want to support our children. Can we do this together with mutual respect? Because I know that for me, a little bit, I don't from my upbringing, but a little bit of my self-worth is tied to my productivity that other people see, right? And so when you said that earlier, like, oh, I'm just a mom, I have totally felt that. Like, I am just a mom. I used to be a high school teacher, but now I'm just a mom. And tonight, we're going out to an event, and I get to say I'm a teacher because I am going to be a paid teacher now. So and then you can compare the education on the cover of Time for this next week is all about how teachers are not making any money, right? And it's all about the teacher struggle, working 3 jobs, 2 jobs, and stuff like that. And so then you can compare the teachers to the corporate America, and so there's no answer. It's perception, right?
Yeah, I really appreciate that you brought that up. And so there is that. Okay, so preschool teachers are paid even less than elementary school teachers, who are paid less than high school teachers, who are paid less than college. I mean, it's just when you look at the whole education realm, and then, homeschool consultants, well, wait, is that really a job? Because aren't they homeschooling? And so there's the whole aware piece of education that we have to explain to people about, we're helping people as they're choosing to homeschool their children, so that there is some oversight and a support network there. But the idea that if we were valuing childhood, again, we're coming back to this idea of valuing childhood, of really looking at what is the most important thing. We're raising the next generation. We are raising the future of humanity. We are looking at how the world is going to perceive, so many different areas there. And so the first 3 years of life are the most critical for, children getting their needs met. And I think that, we really are expressing this opinion that being with family is really important in those early years, and getting that interaction from the caregivers that love them the most and that are that intimate group. And so then as we start to pay people to watch children, the pay is not there as well. And then as it goes up, but this whole idea of how we value, again, the family and education of children. But you're saying that now you can say you were a teacher. Well, if you've been a teacher all along, and
right.
We don't say that.
I did homeschool, and
right. Or you're a nutritionist, or you're, all the amazing things that you do. You're an artist. You're a creative being, and yet when we are home with our children, there is that feeling that we're not contributing out in the marketplace. And so how do we help society understand that this is the most important job in the world? And whether it's the mother or the father or however the family configuration is, if somebody's staying home with the children, that's not devalued, that's highly valued. And then the people that are working with small children are valued so highly. And then as it goes up.
Yeah. I mean, and we're not dads, but I know the stay-at-home dad even feels more pressure because that masculine of like, oh, you're not supporting your family. And it is, I know one thing, Brent would have loved to have been a stay-at-home dad type, but just economically different salaries, it didn't allow for that. I have
Right.
to say though, there is something that gets me, and it's nothing that, I am going to say it out loud because I do have strong feelings about it. However, it's a hard situation. And that's the one where I'm on many Facebook groups and I'm seeing moms with 6-week-old, 4-week-old babies looking for childcare.
Hmm.
And you can look at their profile and they look of means, they look, um, and so I just have to question, why are people maintaining such a high lifestyle? It's the priorities, right? Where they have to learn to value the children and the family, because when they get so detached at 6 weeks old, that there's no attachment there. And so we're having I don't say new generations, but more and more children, our babies are being brought up not feeling important. So where are the priorities, and how can we let parents know, moms know, that this is the best gift, this is what's going to feed you, this is what you need, and look at how you're going to contribute to society. And that's very idealistic, and it's very, I don't want to, definitely, you don't want to come across as like snarky, because and not from a place of judgment, but more so, why, like, don't you see, if you make this choice, how awesome your life could be, and then if you make this choice, it's going to be a lot more work.
Hmm.
I feel.
Yeah. And it is a choice that every woman makes, and every man makes too, if he decides to, to be a father. And they have those discussions about whether they keep working. And I just read a quote, and I can't find it right now off the top, but it was, the woman her business is called Raised Good, and she's talking about parenting, and she's online. Her name is Tracy, and she was talking about, and I'm not going to try to quote it, but she was talking about this concept of, there's generations of children that are struggling to still find that fulfillment that they might not have gotten as children, because they didn't get that unconditional love that they were looking for. And so, when we look at society right now, and we look at all of the issues that are coming up, so many of them come back to that we didn't get all of our needs met in some way. And so if we can fill our children up and really nurture them and give them what they need in those early years, then we're going to have these strong, capable adults. And so, that's kind of the message of our entire podcast with the Moms I Know. And so this idea of, who is going to raise the children? Is mom going to stay home? Is dad going to stay home? Are they going to find caregivers? And so I'm reading this book right now called Work, Pause, Thrive. And it's, the author is a Stanford grad, very, very professional, very capable. And after the birth of her second child, there's a lot of situations that come up, and she chooses to stay home. She chooses to step off of the very corporate fast track career, because her husband's career, they realize, is going to be a little faster track. And so she chooses to stay home. And so she's really gone back to explore this. And the book has made me think a lot. And I'm not quite sure still, I'm still in the midst of reading it. I'm not quite sure how I really feel about it, but this whole concept of work, pause, thrive. She's interviewing a lot of really professional women who have chosen to step off of that path for a while, to be with their children. And then at some point, she's countering the myth that they can't get back into the workplace. And I always remember my mother saying, there's phases of our lives as women. And if we can look at it in this different lens of that, we can have it all. We just can't have it all at once, or we can have it all at once if we look at it a little bit differently. And, it's glass half full, glass half empty. So I had my career in teaching before I had children. I took years off, and then I created a new career that, really creating the homeschool program at our local school was a path that wasn't what I had in mind. And the author of this book, Work, Pause, Thrive, she's talking about how so many of these really capable women, really, super bright, highly educated women, have chosen to step off in one way or another, and then have either gotten back in to the track when the children are older and done just fine. And she's really countered that myth that they're not going to be able to hack it in the world if they take that time off. But that a lot of them recreated careers that were very much more vibrant or more creative, or took into account different aspects that that by having children, they realized that there were other things in life that they valued. And so they wanted to put their energy into those things. And they all ended up with fabulous types of things as well. And so I think if we look at it in terms of compartments of our lives or the phases of our lives, and that we can take that time to be with our children and not worry so much about, are we going to be able to get back into our career, or are we going to be valued as women or men? You know, in our family, we do have one of the dads is staying home with the children and the mom's gone back to work, and it's working out beautifully for their family. But, you know, one of the parents has been home with the children. And then I know there's so many families where they don't have that economic luxury. So what can we do as a society? How can we look at society and say, how can we value these early years and give maternity and paternity leaves that are really strong? And how can we help and bring people into the home to help with some of the things in those early months? So, you know, you look at some other countries around the world that do an amazing job of really supporting families with that. So no easy answers, but again, it comes back to, like you said, the choices that we make and the priorities that we make as parents.
Wow, you said a lot there that just so resonates with me, that just really, it is, you know, it's at a level like making laws at the legislative level of changing laws, family leave laws that need to be changed in our country. You know, what your mother said, it's like we can have it all, but just not at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
That true. And I remember, and I think, you know, young moms really need to hear that, because for me, I remember being in a women's group in the early years and having a friend say of this preschool teacher in her hometown that she was retiring at 80 years old, and she did not start her career until she was 50. And how, like, what? She started a career at age 50, and how a rich career at 30, you know, a long 30-year career, but it didn't start until age 50. Like, you can keep it reinventing yourself. And so I feel like if you know that can happen, then why steal that time away from your precious children?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like what we're learning now with my teenagers, it's really all that love and attention and attachment parenting that we poured in those early years, it's paying off with my relationship with my teens now. I mean, hands down. And it was you who I remember meeting at this time where you said you really like your teenagers. You don't hear that often. And I said, oh, I love teenagers because I taught high school, but I don't know how my own teenagers would be. You know, now I'm in it and I am loving them, you know, because, and I really do believe it's because that attention paid in the early years is so key.
Yeah, I think it really is. I also know there are a lot of families who have not had that luxury, and they still have managed to have lovely, close families, but we do it, you know, in slightly different ways, and trying to just make sure those family dinners, those family vacations are rich and vibrant. But you're right, nothing gets those years back. And so, you know, for those of you with young children, if you can be making those choices and those priorities to really look at how do we spend as much time as possible with our children. That doesn't mean giving our children everything. It means spending time with them and really processing.
Yeah, and it's like I have a lot of friends who are working moms, and you know they would co-sleep with their babies when they were younger to have that closeness, and really, you know, be like you said, making that family, making that a priority, despite having two busy working schedules. It's a lot. And one thing I know that you're doing right now is you are making a big move to be next to your family. And one thing that my sister just said this week, her oldest is just her freshman year in college, and she said, I want to be a grandparent that helps raise my grandchildren. And I said, yes, because that's going to allow her daughter to work, you know, be in the workforce and yet support her daughter and then support the family. So I really think like that grandmother hypothesis that we talked about, you know, really being present. And so I so admire what you're doing, is that you are going to be stepping in and really helping out your daughter and her family raising your grandchildren, right?
Well, it's such a precious time, and I'm loving every minute that I can be with my grandchildren. I also realize that, you know, I have to take care of myself as well, and she has to take care of herself, and we have to find our path with this and our boundaries and our ways in which it will all work. But I don't want to miss this precious time with them as well. And I also was so fortunate to have grandparents who were close by when I was growing up, and those relationships were precious, treasured relationships. And so, I want our grandchildren to have that. We're moving closer to some and we're moving a little further away from some. And so we're going to have to really look at making sure that we have that balance in our lives, that we can come and go and to spend time with all of them. And yet I do feel that the grandparents' roles with children are so essential. And I know nowadays we live far away from our nuclear families. And so I have a good friend who she has become sort of a grandparent to a family in the neighborhood whose own grandparents are far away. And so she's like the adopted grandmother. And I love that she didn't have children of her own, and she's choosing to have this relationship with this young couple and their little girl. And she's become the grandmother to this little one. And it's really rewarding for all of them. And so, there's a lot of different ways we can look at this, and we can, reach out to the different ages in your community, reach out to neighbors and people in the area. And the other thing about the homeschool journey that I've really loved is this multi-generational approach where children are really exposed to people of all ages. So I think that's good for all of us to be in community.
Yeah, we can talk forever about this because it just keeps, as we're talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's more and more. And the thing that, as I'm being a homeschool teacher, and homeschooling is growing very much so, especially in our state. And what I'm seeing is that what a great option for families to be together, but that these are working moms, bring it back to working moms. And you know what they're doing? They're doing a lot of these MLMs. They're doing these MLMs on missions, like that are, like I say, missions that have good messages. MLMs, as we know, have kind of a bad rap. And I think it's really changing, essential oils, makeup, and, different health and fitness products are really helping families where a mom or dad's able to stay home and still bring in a pretty good salary. You and I both know some big players in there who are homeschooling families making really good money. And so where there's a way, I mean,
yeah, where there's a will, there's a way. And both of us, to be absolute disclosure here, we both have our side, as you've said, the side hustles where we've been able to bring in some with products or services that we believe wholeheartedly in. And so that has been an incredible opportunity for so many people. And so I think people are really looking at how do we make our family work? How do we contribute financially? How do we fill our souls with meaningful work in the home as well as outside of the home? How do we look at extended family? How do we incorporate the village? And so I really think that we're at this point in history that it's very exciting, and that fathers are taking such a much larger role in the family. I see it so much more, and I see it, in our own family as well as just out in the world. And I love the fact that the fathers are contributing, that they're wanting to be with their children. I mean, I had a wonderful father, but he was working every day. And so we had, the little outings and things like that, but he wasn't as integral as our mother was in the raising of us. And so I love to see this next generation taking such an active and loving role with the children. I know my children, their father, he can do no wrong. And so
we've talked about that. That's not like my husband as well.
Yeah, right. So anyhow, lots of territory that we've covered today. And I think that we will be covering this topic in other ways in future episodes. But I really appreciate the time that we were able to spend today, because it's been coming up so much for both of us. And so just letting people know that, yes, you can have it all, just in slightly different ways or at different times. And that valuing this time with your children is so important.
Yeah. And I think that's the main point here, is that whatever you choose, and we're not going to say one way is better than the other. Whatever you choose, we want you to choose family first. That's what we're saying for future generations. We want you to realize that it is important when you decide to have babies, have children, raise your children, you need to be present.
Family matters. And again, we come back to that parenting with intention, just looking at how we make all of these choices. And it's such an important one, and it's a joyful one. So rewarding. With that, enjoy your week, and we will look forward to being with you again next time on The Moms I Know. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today for the Moms I Know. To learn more about Sheila and her online program, The Mom Map, visit purplebeetnutrition.com. For Maria's monthly blog and to learn more about her group programs and retreats, visit soquelessentials.com. That's SOQUEL essentials.com. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Moms I Know. Until next week, have a joyful family journey.